Welcome back, everybody. How are we doing today? This is United versus Everybody. I am your host, Sean. So glad to be back with another Man United News Roundup stream. I know you guys are here for it. I know you guys love it. Today is a doozy, though. We've got a lot of, I'll call it fun stuff to talk about. It's not really fun in the good sense. It's fun because it's like you got to force it, right? You got to fake it till you make it. If you don't laugh, you're just going to break stuff or cancel a kick your TV. But it's going to be a fun one. Sir Jim and Ineos find themselves in yet another PR headache as a major sports team threatens legal action against them. Danny B in the house. How are you doing today, my friend? Before we do get into all that, statements from both sides, because we have got a statement from Ineos literally about 20-25 minutes ago on that. Before we do that, we'll go through a little bit of transfer odds and ends, and then I got a fun little scout report for everybody. So, Danny Brokios, you know what it is, man. It's just, we'll talk about it, but like they've got to look at everything they're doing, and they've got to maybe make some hard choices with some things to maybe sell. Now we talked about that news last week that they were going to sell. I forget the name of it now, but the company they created during the pandemic to get hand sanitizer and to get other medical supplies to NHS and stuff. They're selling that company, so they're doing that, but they need to do that more in other areas. Like I've said a couple times, they need to sell Nice. Like there's no need for that. Like Sir Jim only paid 100 million for Nice. He's put about 200 or so odd million of his own money into that club since he took it over not that long ago. You could easily get a minimum half a bill for Nice right now and sell, and then it would be just profit. Like that to me is a no-brainer. So, but anyway, we are going to talk about all that. Hit the like button, please, for me. Please subscribe to the channel if you are new. Go check out those membership perks, like I said, to see how you can get even more involved in the content that we put out and the topics we discuss here on United vs. Everybody. Hit the bell to make sure you don't miss out on anything like all the fun late-breaking news. But first things first, not to start on a somber note, because when someone passes, it is sad, and you're allowed to be sad, but it's also about remembrance, about honoring and celebration. And so today, United legend and king of the Stretford End, Dennis Law, has been laid to rest in Manchester. If you guys seen some of the clips and some of the photos out there, Manchester United players, former players, coaching staff, everyone has come to pay the respects. Sir Alex gave a very moving tribute. I believe that was at the Manchester Cathedral today. I think that's also where Sir Bobby Charlton's service was held. I found myself at the cathedral actually last year, very randomly. I grabbed some Starbucks after I had done a tour of the National Football Museum right there downtown, which is literally like one block away from the church. I just started walking with my coffee and then found myself in a little courtyard of the cathedral. Very, very beautiful, very, very, very nice location. And obviously, I'm a bit sad to discuss it today, but rest in peace, King of the Stretford End, Dennis Law. We remember you. Remember everything you did for this club, one of the Trinity. You guys were a part. You were part of the only 3 Ballon d'Or holders currently playing at the club. Like that's a record that we love. So we remember everything you did, and we remember your career, your life, and we celebrate that today, Dennis Law. On to some potential transfer news. So there is a chance that Real Betis could push to make Antony's loan permanent. So if you've been following his progress, obviously Antony went on loan to Real Betis in the January transfer window. He's played 2 matches so far, and he scored a goal at the weekend. He was named man of the match for both. But Fabrizio Romano has a little bit of an update today. So this is coming from a quote from Real Betis CEO Ramon Alarcón. I don't know. But he says, why not keep Antony here next season? It's a possibility. We sent United all the moves and details of the player throughout the week so that they can see that we are looking after their asset. He says there is very good chemistry. Honestly, he's all yours. If you want him, take him. Like, I gave Antony time. I loved him at Ajax. He was an absolute world beater at Ajax. He could beat 3 defenders with a simple little elastico or anything. He was much better at shooting. The shooting thing really frustrated me with Antony. There's no reason you should go from being so accurate with your shooting in one league to another, because shooting doesn't have anything to do with anything other than just you. Um, Sometimes the pace, the physicality of the Premier League, and honestly at United, sometimes just the pressurized fishbowl that is playing for Manchester United just doesn't suit some players. Sometimes they can't handle it. Sometimes the league itself is just not suited to them. And it kind of became apparent early on with Anthony, just like it did with Sancho. He's another example. I just don't think that they thrive in this league. So Real Betis want him. They can have him. Let's see what everyone here first. Um, Sean, been watching a few clips as Danny in a recent match of a kid playing for Vélez Sarsfield. I think he is going to be better than Franco Mastantuono. Who is he? Let me see. Alvaro Montoro. Right on, Danny. Well, you guys, you know, Danny, that I have nothing but the utmost respect for your scouting, your talent identification, especially when it comes to those guys. So I will look it up and see, and then maybe we'll feature him in another scouting report. But big up, man. Good looking out. You know that when it comes to South American talent, you are second to none. So, speaking of scouting reports, though, following the Anthony says he's class. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna look him up and see what I can find. Why don't we do a little mini scouting report today while we're talking about attacking midfielders, while we're talking about, scouts, while we're talking about Ineos, and is a good segue into kind of what Ineos are doing. I just realized I just spelled this guy's name wrong. Don't worry about it. Ignore it. Typo. Let's say hello to Alvin Sanchez. Now it says Alvin Sanchez. It's Alvin. I just misspelled it, so don't come at me. He is a 21-year-old playing with FC Lausanne Sport in the Swiss League. He is currently on 13 goals, 4 assists in all comps right now, including 2 goals and an assist in his last match. It was a 4-1 victory. I forget who they were playing. That earned him man of the match. It earned him a perfect 10 rating on SofaScore and a 9.6 rating on FootMob. It was an excellent match from the kid. As you can see, he plays any number of roles, kind of in the center of the pitch, whether it's a kind of a right-sided 8, a number 10. He plays a lot as a number 10, but he can also play kind of as a center forward. He's also very, very active higher up the pitch. He's got pace, he's got passing, he's got vision. He presses high up the pitch, energy to burn. His touch is incredible, especially under pressure in tight areas. His tackling and his dribbling as well. He pitches in off the ball. Very, very, very good player. Again, he's actually been man of the match 5 times this season so far, just this season, and he's been in the team of the week 6 times this season. Again, primarily he's kind of playing in that 8, in that central midfield as well. But again, he does play just as many matches in the 10 role. He's also played as kind of a false 9 center forward. He is second in the Swiss league right now for the average rating right now. Second in terms of goal scores, third for combined goals and assists, third for shots per 90, and fourth for shots on target per 90, something that we need to get more of in this squad. He is first in the Swiss league right now for successful dribbles per 90. So the guy gets the ball and it sticks to him like glue. Again, if you watch this guy play, his feet are on point. Like, he's a bit tall, he's a bit lanky, but he's very, very, very good. He reminds me of De Ketelaere at Atalanta, who another player I've been watching since he was playing in the Belgian league. He also averages, Sanchez, more than 2 tackles per 90, which, again, that's that work rate, that's that high pressing. For an attacking player, for an advanced midfielder, that's very, very good. Suits the system very well. Putting in a shift on and off the ball, mentality, ready for the step up. Celtic were linked in January. Newcastle still linked, and it sounds like Lausanne want just £7 million or so to get it done. Now, I could easily see him in one of the 10 roles at United. I think he's exactly the kind of player that we think of, like the Cunha mold, the runner, the carrying the ball, the getting involved. He reminds me a lot of Cunha, the way he plays. Again, we are reportedly looking to strengthen one of these 10 roles, according to recent reports, along with goal scoring, and he ticks both those boxes. Now, like Danny says, we do have a little bit of an advantage here because Ineos own Lausanne Sport. Why is my light doing something weird? Sorry, my light is being weird right now. There we go. Ineos own Lausanne Sport. It is one of the many clubs that they own, and I think that could give us a little bit of an advantage as well. But I really, really like this kid. Been watching him for a little bit, paying attention to the way he's progressing and stuff. Very, very good young player. Danny says Rogers kind of player is he? He is a little bit more like a Deketelare than a Rogers. Rogers, I see him a lot as just one like a runner, a ball carrier in midfield, going to cause a lot of problems. This guy, he can get the ball in wide positions. He can get it in central positions. He's press resistant. He works well under pressure. He creates space for himself. He's very quick, very good on the ball, but he's a goal scorer. Again, think Deketelare at Atalanta right now. Goals for George. Welcome back, my friend. All right, I'm going to take him off the screen, mostly because I'm embarrassed because I misspelled his name. This is what happens. This is why I need to double check these things before I go live. Goal says, why are Ineos not sending academy players to Lausanne to get first team? They have actually. They've sent two there to spend some time there a little while ago. A couple of the academy youngsters spent a couple of weeks there. So they have done that, and that's something I've said that we need to do more of in terms of getting some first team minutes for some of these youngsters. It could be a really good opportunity, like to not, it's a tap in terms of development goes. We were linked to another player that they had, Profundi, I think his name was. But this kid, again, goal scorer, really, really good in advanced positions higher up the pitch, really good chance creator, successful dribbles on point, second in the Swiss league for goals right now. Joel Spurs, why aren't they sending a first team experience to get Lucien to climb the table? Would be cost effective and help the development of the players. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that I'm not seeing enough, and we'll talk a little bit more about this a little later on. And when it comes to the best in class, the footballing decisions, some of these, it's for me. So a lot of people go on about the decisions. In life, I think personally that indecision, the things that you're not doing, can sometimes have a bigger impact. And I think that in this case, not doing something, just having this opportunity right here, right in front of you for development for some of the youngsters in the squad, whether that's Obi or something, we could bring in this kid who's already 21, send Obi Martin over there for development or Bian Cherry over there for development. And then in another year or two, we've got other players who are getting first team experience, and this kid's already been here. He's old enough, Sanchez, that I think that he could come in and do a job. So, Jay says, would you consider a scouting role at the club? I'd be too afraid of getting fired if I worked for United. I did apply for a job at United a couple of weeks ago, but I think that because I live here, and it would the headache, the logistics of getting over there, and because United would have to sponsor me for a work visa and all that stuff, and there's a lot of licensure reciprocity that I'd have to go through the process of doing, but it is a role involving like academy in the community and kind of like bridging that gap, and from a mental health capacity was the role. But I look at jobs in football all the time, so I'm always on the lookout for stuff. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, Danny's the one you want to talk to, Jay. Danny's got that South America. I feel like Danny actually doesn't live in America. I think he lives in like Argentina or Brazil or something, because the dude has got his ear to the ground when it comes to South American talent. So anytime you have any questions about South American talent, I defer to Danny's expertise on that one. But that was Alvin Sanchez. Again, plays for Lausanne. Can play as central midfield, can play as a 10, can play as a little bit as a center forward. I think he'd be perfect in one of those 10 roles. Reportedly, £7 million would get the deal done for interested teams like Celtic and Newcastle. Ineos owns Lausanne. I think it's a tap in for us, but we will see if anything happens. But you guys know I just like to throw out the random scouting reports now and then. So moving on, because we're going to talk about some of this Ineos news here. Goals for George. I have not really been impressed watching Tell at Spurs. He looks small, weak, and slow. Cannot believe we're hyping this kid up. He does not look ready apart from his goal, which was good. Give him time. I do like Matthias Tell a lot. Now, I don't know if I would have wanted us to spend $60 million on him, plus the $10 million in the loan fee, plus all his wages, like Spurs are doing. But I do like Tell a lot, and I still believe that his ceiling is higher than Garnacho personally. And that doesn't mean that I would instantly swap him or anything. I really liked Tell. I think he'd have been good, but I don't think that I would have done what Spurs did. And if we had done what Spurs did, we would be slated for it in the media. Notice you're not seeing any. But it's just, hold on, I got to take a detour here, because Spurs, this is embarrassing. If the media, if you want any more proof about the way that the media just love certain teams and they love to hate others. Look at this FA Cup week. Look at this match week in the FA Cup, right? Arne Slot, Liverpool get knocked out. Postecoglou gets knocked out. Postecoglou is below us in the table, is knocked out of competitions, literally only has Europa League to play for, and yet the media are still finding excuses for him in terms of injuries. And we didn't get that love from the media when we were down to like bare bones center back pairing, when we had literally the most injuries in the league 2 years or last year. Nobody cared about that. Ten Hag got more shit for winning the FA Cup, literally immediately after winning the FA Cup, than Ange and Arne Slot and Arteta are getting for being knocked out of the FA Cup. Like, this is ridiculous. How does Ten Hag get more shit for literally beating Man City in the final than Arne Slot is getting for losing to Plymouth Argyle in the 4th round? Like, this is some horse shit right here. I'm so annoyed right now. I am like what? Does the media just want to wipe their ass for him too while they're at it? They want to like change their diaper. This is fucking ridiculous. Sorry, I was on one a little bit. I was reading some stuff yesterday about, I think it was from Mark Ogden, and I can't stand Mark Ogden, but Danny agrees. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. You guys, we may not have all loved Ten Hag. Everybody's got their thoughts, but the shit that he got for what he did is beyond disgraceful. But that's it. Let's move on to this Ineos news. Please hit that like button if you want to subscribe to the channel. We're going to talk about all the fun Ineos stuff right now. So let's paint a picture here. So Ineos has its fingers in a lot of pies, right? Petrochemicals, automotive, racing, sailing, cycling. And as we just discussed with Lausanne Sport in that little mini scout report, they own a few football clubs as well. Lausanne Sport, OGC Nice, and obviously Manchester United. Sir Jim is majority or minority stakeholder, but has upped his stake to like 28% as of like last month or something. So he's pushing to become more. Danny is Brokios. Just get the hashtag going. Start the hashtag, Danny. Spinioso is a good one. So if you came up with that, Danny, kudos, because that's a really good one. So in 2021, though, Ineos agreed to a 6-year sponsorship deal with the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks, and that was worth about £3.6 million per year. Like I said, a lot of pies. They're just always looking to get involved in something, always looking for ways to make your money work for you. That's basically the mantra of big business owners. Find a way to make your money work for you. Invest, start these sponsorship deals, get that money rolling in. That's why clubs pay so much money for stadiums and whatnot, because it means revenue. A little bit of money now means a lot of money over time. I don't like multiple football club ownerships. I'm not a big fan of that model, but it's not my money. So, I think, though, for a PSR hit United side, again, I do think that selling Nice would help us. But that's another conversation for another day. Fast forward, though, to this morning, literally early this morning, because the news is coming out of New Zealand, and the All Blacks have released a statement basically accusing Ineos of breach of contract. That's a big deal. Danny says paying Spurs too, right? Yeah. So this is the full statement from New Zealand Rugby, and this is coming initially from Telegraph Sport. It reads as follows. There was a lot. I didn't want to make another thing for it because there was a lot to put on there, so I'll just read it out to you guys. You guys have probably read it as well, but it says New Zealand Rugby is disappointed that Ineos has breached its sponsorship agreement. Most recently, it failed to pay the first installment of the 2025 sponsorship fee, confirming its decision to exit our 6-year agreement. Having learned of Ineos' decision to walk away 3 years early, we have moved to protect the interests of New Zealand Rugby and the wider game. We have been left with no option but to launch legal proceedings to protect our commercial position. New Zealand Rugby is actively pursuing new commercial opportunities, and global interest in the All Blacks and other teams in black remains high. We are committed to being world-class on and off the field and deliver unique value to sponsors through our iconic brand. So basically, like I said, they agreed to this deal a couple of years ago. This is before they came to United. And it almost seems like that taking on United kind of forced them to take another look at all these other commitments they had made. But now the All Blacks are pursuing legal action. Ineos apparently have pulled out of that deal after failing to pay the initial installment. Now, fast forward to this morning. Goals says media hated Erik ten Hag, and that was obvious from the onset. Big Ange got love early last season, but he has evaporated now. I actually felt sorry for him after the FA Cup loss. I have no sympathy for the Boomerang Bielsa. The dude is literally shooting himself in the foot with the tactics and things, and just literally not giving his players a second to, like, it's one thing to play the way you play and to see all these demands, but then if you have the injuries, you have to adjust a little bit. You have to just think about some of that. I'm not saying change like everything, like I've said about Amorim, but like, dude, and he's just not that good. Like, they're not that good. Like, they're below us in the table, but no one talks about it. Like, no one cares. It's fucking annoying, man. But Ineos this morning released its own statement, and this again went public right before I went live, so I made sure I got this one down. So let's see what Ineos has to say here. Ineos has greatly valued its sponsorship of New Zealand rugby, having contributed over $30 million to the teams in recent years. However, trading conditions for our European businesses have been severely impacted by the high energy costs and extreme carbon taxes, along with much of the chemicals industry in Europe, which is struggling or shutting down. We are witnessing the deindustrialization of Europe. So bringing Europe into it, keep the country's name out of your mouth, Ineos. As a result, we have had to implement cost-saving measures. We know all about cost-saving measures. It's like the word of the year right now. Just like sustainability was last year, just like style of play, like box to box when Mourinho was here. We sought to reach a sensible agreement with the All Blacks to adjust our sponsorship in light of these challenges. Unfortunately, rather than working towards a managed solution, New Zealand Rugby have chosen to pursue legal action against their sponsor. We remain in ongoing discussion with New Zealand Rugby. So, shots fired, shots returned. It's just, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it's just one of those. I wish. When was the last time we didn't have negative PR at this club? Because even though it has nothing to do with us, really, it now has everything to do with us. I'm not even asking for positive PR spin right now. I'm just tired of the negative. Can we just get back to neutral? That would be a goal for me right now. He says, "What a spin," and that's the way you do it. I mean, anytime you have a public statement, whether it's the one from the All Blacks or one from Ineos, it's going to go through several edits. It's going to go through professional writing, and it's going to make it, look the best for you. That's just the way PR works. We all know that. But like, getting back to Ineos for a second, like, why agree to a sponsorship deal if you couldn't pay or weren't planning to pay, or if, after taking on other commitments, i.e. United, a lot of that changed? Like, why not be in open communication about that? Why not be proactive? And I think that's the word that I'm going to be using a lot to talk about Ineos, is proactive. Why not be proactive as you are constantly assessing and reassessing global economy and whatever you want to claim? Why not be communicative with the All Blacks in that regard? Ineos have removed all links to the All Blacks on your website. If you go to the link, it just says page not found now. So it seems like this is all done and dusted, like Sancho and Rashford all over again. But breach of contract is a big deal. Legally, commercially, like, that's a big deal. That could be that term in itself, the whole breach of contract thing. That's a big deal. Again, if you want to cancel a sponsorship, again, just cancel it. Don't default on your very first payment installment. That's not a good look. Again, now you add to that the cost cuts and whatnot that Ineos have undergone since taking over United. And again, like I said last week when we did that video, it's just looking more and more like Sir Jim, Ineos, if you want to separate them, if you want to combine them all, whatever. It's just looking more and more like they either can't handle all these responsibilities, financially speaking, or they just don't want to pay out of their own pocket, and they're trying to figure out ways to do that. And again, that's not anything abnormal in terms of business and owning a business and making that happens all over the place. It's just not a good look. The optics are not great at all, and it's just another headache that we don't need right now as a club. Whether it has anything to do with us or not, we're gonna have to bear the brunt of it. This shit's going to roll downhill. The players are going to see that. They're going to have their own thoughts. The fans obviously going to have their own thoughts. Ruben Amorim is probably going to be thinking about this. I no doubt that he'll have to field questions about this in his next presser. I mean, the guy's still getting asked questions about Rashford. Ten Hag got asked about ownership shit all the time. shit that we don't have anything to do with, but Amorim's going to have to deal with it. And I think that's the kind of stuff, more than anything, I think, and Amorim has already kind of hinted at this when he first got here, is just the amount of interviews and media that he had to do with how different it is from Portuguese league. That's the kind of stuff that I worry is going to start just wearing him down like water on rock. Like, he's already looks miserable in these pressers. He's already so tired of having to do, because it's pre-match, it's post-match, it's the embargoed stuff, it's the separate stuff with Sky, all this shit that he's just constantly having to do, and a lot of it is just shit that he shouldn't have to deal with. There's no such thing as perfect owners, especially in football. There's no such thing as a perfect business owner. Ineos have their critics. I kind of went in on them a little bit last week with that video. I know everybody's got their own thoughts. The Glazers obviously are a shit show. We know that. That's academic. The potential Qatari bid, obviously, that was going to have its pros and cons for a lot of people as well. I think more fans are probably open to the Qatari bid because of the wealth involved, the reported wealth involved. But again, that's a separate conversation in and of itself. What do we got here? What are you saying, Goals? I wonder at what point will you give up on Amorim and his project? I expected to see improvements in some players due to better coaching, but someone likened it to a teacher asking for his own students. I mean, it's a little different because, a teacher, your students aren't there for like a system. You're not, the students are there to learn. I think that coaching in football is a little different. I don't know. Are you asking me specifically at what point I will give up, or are you just kind of saying you like in general for everybody? Because you guys know, I don't. I mean, Amorim has been here a few months. If people are already saying Amorim out after a few months, I think that we're now getting to a point where the wave of fan impatience is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and maybe that has more to do with the last decade than it has to do with Amorim himself. And in which case, if that's true for fans, I think fans need to kind of recalibrate a little bit. But I'm not going to tell any fan what to do or how to feel. You guys know, I always just try to be objective. I try to give context so people have more well-rounded information coming in when they try to formulate an opinion, because I do think it's too easy to have knee-jerk reactions. I think it's too easy to buy into a headline, to buy into a tweet. And I do think a lot of that does have to do with the fact that pretty much any and every United piece of news that comes out is negative, whether it has anything to do with us, whether it is negative or not. That's all. And Danny says, Amorim has a free hit till next January for me. The squad needs fixed first. Yeah, and we did the video a couple days ago on the steps that I think Ruben Amorim can take, the couple little changes and tweaks that he can make now to kind of help us with the rest of the season. Some of them they're not a whole lot. And I think like even Stehausen was talking about this yesterday. He kind of echoed some of what I was saying, like specifically like up the tempo. Let's get some one touch going on. We saw a little glimpse of that against Leicester when we had a couple of these counters attacks. Let's like stuff like that. It doesn't take much. Maybe put another attacker kind of alongside Højlund instead of having tens kind of thing. Just getting more bodies, a little more advanced positions. Simple little things that I said. Now, and this is because I do feel like, yes, Amorim does have to play a little bit more of an active role, a little bit more of an accountable role in turning these things around. Like I said, I've criticized him several times for the experimentation. I've said, it's time to stop that right now. I'm not saying that like I'm Amorim out if he doesn't. I'm just saying like we've seen that some of these things don't work. You have seen what works. Go back to what works, and let's get to limping, get to crawling, get to running, and then we'll get there. But on Ineos, I've said many times that much of the shit show that they inherited is again inherited. It wasn't what they've done. It's the culmination of years and years of mismanagement and greediness from the Glazers and Woodward, Murtaugh, Arnold, all these guys. But when you take it on, when you put that bid out there, when you say, I want to be Manchester United owner, I want to turn things around in 3 years, I'm going to bring in best in class this, I'm going to do this. You also take on a responsibility to fix it, to find solutions. And I spoke about this the other day as well. You can't make statements about challenging in 3 years and then not be more proactive. Again, there's that word proactive and creative to finding those solutions other than just firing some people or raising a few ticket prices. Like that doesn't make a difference. Raising 3% of the 33-pound tickets to 66-pound, what is that actually doing? That's literally only negative. That's a lose-lose no matter what, because it doesn't. Yes, it's not a lot of tickets, but it doesn't do enough financially to do anything. It doesn't make sense. Getting a few high earners off the books isn't enough either. It helps. It definitely helps in terms of getting the squad back to a manageable thing, but it doesn't help in terms of, to me, it's not enough to expedite that 3-year goal, personally. Ineos have a big hill to climb. Every bit of negative PR like today, that's just like the rugby situation. It only makes the peak of that summit that much further out of reach. That just adds more distance to cover, adds more of an incline. It just makes it more difficult. So you guys let me know what you think about the news that came out today. Do you care that much because it's rugby? Do you think it has any sort of connection to United? Do you see some echoes there, some similarities? Are you worried at all? Like, obviously everyone's talking about it. We're throwing it out there, but obviously I'm here to get your thoughts. Goals got the questions today. Wants to know: do you admit that if Amorim finishes lower than 8th and no trophy, then he has failed this season? 10 games next season would then be pressure like Erik ten Hag. The reason for sacking ten Hag was to improve, right? Do I admit that if Amorim finishes lower than 8th? I don't think we're getting above 10th this season. We weren't. Look where were we when he came in, like 12th, 13th. I don't think that was a realistic maybe expectation or a demand, really. Now, again, I do think there are things that he can change that could help us kind of salvage something from the seasons, could see us maybe turn a few of these results around, but they've got to start now. We've got to just start doing things now. Now, I fully understand that you can't change tactics, you can't change your system, you can't just go back to basics to try to do something, because we'll be in the same situation next season. Now, it could be a little different if he gets some of the players that he prefers for his system. Maybe that'll make it similar. And I've said before, like, if you don't have the players, I said about Ten Hag, if you don't have the players to play out from the back, like I said, maybe you need to speed that process up. Maybe you need to up that tempo in that regard. You can't play out from the back with Harry Maguire or Raphael Varane last year. It's not going to happen. So there are things that he can do. I'm not going to turn it into a black or white pass fail kind of thing, because I don't think it just depends on what the goal was for you as a fan, what the goal is for Amorim, what the goal was for Ineos and everything. Obviously, the goal in sport is to win, but we're not winning. We weren't, like, a lot of that stuff was out of reach. Now we're still in cup competitions. We're undefeated in Europa League. We're still in the FA Cup. We've got Fulham next in that beginning of next month. So we could get a trophy this weekend. I don't think it's 100% guaranteed, obviously, but it depends on what your goals were and what you define as success or fail. I don't like to look at things in the black or white terms. I think that oversimplifies things a little bit, and it makes it too easy to look at things as a failure, because for a lot of people, success or failure, the success portion of that is very specific, and anything that doesn't look perfectly in that is automatic failure. And I don't think life is that black or white, personally. But I mean, I can definitely see how I think fans are more frustrated just with the situation than with Amorim, personally. You may not agree. I don't see the point in sacking another manager. I don't see the point in telling Amorim to change things, because the players were playing the Erik ten Hag way, and that got Erik ten Hag sacked. So going back to a different system is not going to change anything, especially if it's not a system that the manager uses. Like, that just doesn't make sense. Might as well tell Ten Hag, like, hey, switch to a 3 at the back, 3-5-2 or something, and then do something. He's not going to know how to do that. Danny says it worries me. Goal says the reason for sacking Erik ten Hag was to improve. I think the reason was because it just wasn't working. I think that it had become a little unsustainable in that regard, personally. Rich, how are you, my friend? Good deal. Good to see you again, my friend. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts. Obviously, everyone's going to have their own on the Ineos news. Everyone's going to have their own on Amorim. He is a big undertaking, and really, we got one player in January. He didn't have a preseason. He didn't have any time to train until recently. There's a lot of factors to consider. It's not as simple as we lost a game or we lost a couple games. Amorim needs to go. It's not working. He's not the right guy. I don't think it's that simple. Add to that this is clearly a long-term vision because Amorim is also a young manager. I think people forgetting this. He's just literally just turned 40. He's literally like not even a year older than I am. And like and that's we have to be patient. If we're going to be patient with guys like Manu and Garnacho, we do have to be patient with Amorim. Now I get this is United. We want to start winning, but I think people have to try to remove recency bias, try to be a little bit more realistic in their expectations sometimes. It's not going to be an overnight process, all right? This isn't, I mean, look at, again, Ange Postecoglou, perfect example. Not Unai Emery, sorry, Lopetegui, these guys. Even Maresca, came in all guns blazing, and now they're starting to regress to the mean a little bit. Now we kind of missed out on the new manager bounce. We kind of took advantage of that with Ruud. But I think that we're going to need patience. Now, that doesn't excuse Amorim and the players at all, because I do think there are things that they can do. But again, there's more to it than simple like 8th place or failure kind of a thing, if that makes sense. So, but you guys let me know. That was pretty much the news. I did put a poll up if you guys haven't seen yet, in case people are interested in maybe doing like a watch along later today. It could be Champions League. It could be FA Cup if people want to watch the Exeter Forest match. Really, though, it just depends on how many of you guys are interested. Because if a few people are interested, I don't know if we'll be able to do that. But if enough people want to watch something, let me know. But go vote in that. Let me know if there's a match that you want to watch. I think right now most people are leaning more towards the City Real Madrid Champions League match. But if you are interested, again, go vote, and we can try to make that happen later on today. I think kickoff's at 3. I didn't put the Brest PSG game on there because I don't really want to watch that. But Goals for George says, during the preseason in the States, there was positivity apart from the cloud around Erik ten Hag. I actually was expecting top 4 and a cup, preferably Europa Cup, and believed sacking Erik ten Hag was to keep the dream. I mean, you always hope that when you get a new manager that there's, they're going to do that. I think again, we had to be realistic. I think a lot of people looked at that and they said, okay, FA Cup and 8th. In order to look at next season as progression, we have to do better. And I think that just because people say, well, progression next season means this, that means that we're going to get that. Those are not the same thing. You can look at it and say, yes, that's progress, but at the same time, was it realistic? Probably not. And again, a lot of people are going to point to the way we're playing, because even now the performances aren't convincing. And I think, again, the players have a lot to do with that. The manager has a few things he can do. And I've said this many, many times now, so I don't want to rehash it. But again, I think that it's about expectations. It's about those expectations being realistic. You have to temper that with realism, because otherwise it's unfair, whether that's with the club or with relationships or whatever. Big up, Darkro. How are you doing, my friend? Good to see you. We are just about wrapping up, though, bud. Danny says, I knew preseason we weren't finishing top 4, especially when we didn't sign a left back. Yeah, I think, again, Amorim is kind of bearing the brunt of a lot of the indecision, a lot of poor decisions, just like every manager. And I've said this about Ten Hag, guys. You guys know I was never Ten Hag out. I got to a point where I did admit, like, I don't see how he escapes some of these things, but it is what it is. A lot of this is on Ineos too. For instance, if they approached Amorim in the spring, they ended up giving Ten Hag a contract after he won the FA Cup. It was very highly publicized that we were looking at replacements. Now, whether or not you agree with that or not, but again, that's on Ineos, because they made the decision to stick with Ten Hag, and then they turned around and sacked him and brought Amorim in November. I feel like, again, if that was something that you should have, if that was a realistic possibility, then you should have just bit the bullet, brought Amorim in the summer, gave him a preseason, worked with him for players for his system, rather than, again, we're kind of losing a whole nother year because of this. This whole rebuild could have started 6 months earlier had Ineos just kind of had a little bit of proactive mindset, a little bit of foresight, and a little bit of that kind of decision making that we've seen from them since. So there are a lot of brand new things, a lot of changes going on all around at the same time. So it's really difficult to to pin it on one thing or one person or even a couple. There's just so much going on. And again, it's a culmination of the way the club has been run for a while. So I hear the opinions, goals for George. I'm not saying that you're wrong because, again, to me, it's not about right and wrong. Everybody's got an opinion. I'm here for all of it. And I love it. I love hearing other perspectives because I'm just one person. I try to be objective. I try to be open-minded. I try to look at it from different angles, but there's always going to be another angle that I'm not seeing it from, and that's where you guys come in. So, but yeah, the preseason, I mean, you guys know I don't put a whole lot of stock in preseason anyway. I hate friendlies, whether they're international or preseason. All I see when I hear the word friendly is injuries. So in any case, go ahead and vote if you guys want to do a watch along later on. I have no problem doing one, but let me know if you have one in mind. I did put some options up there, so go vote. Like I said, if enough people get involved, we'll go do that. Please like the video. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. If you are new, we are on the road to 3K. Seems like a lot of people were very, very interested in a couple of the recent videos, probably because they all wanted to get involved in Bash Ineos, or they wanted to see what I decided were the best ways to save United season. So, but go check those out. One more comment here from George here. Does Amorim not know that no player leaves United unless they choose to, as they have the power? Why pick fights with Casemiro, etc., when they will not leave until the summer earliest? It makes no sense. I mean, did he pick a fight with Casemiro? You got to remember that Casemiro didn't even feature in the FA Cup final, so maybe that's a Casemiro thing rather than an Amorim thing. Again, I don't know because we're not privy to that kind of information. But if it's not like Amorim is the first manager to decide that a player doesn't suit a system and then not play him. I mean, that happens literally everywhere you go. I mean, when Jose Mourinho arrived, he pretty much banished Schweinsteiger to the Resis. Everybody does this. Every manager and it's not personal. And the footballers know that. They're professionals. They know this is what happens. And if Casemiro, as a 31, 32-year-old, can't see that, then I think that's more on him. Now, he could probably have more to offer. Obviously, we saw those links to Flamengo yesterday. He's been linked to Besiktas as well. Roma, I think, were linked a couple weeks back. He can go play. He can go do a job, but he's not. I don't think he has a job necessarily in this system. And again, we've all been saying that for a while now, since before Amorim arrived. How long have we all been saying Casemiro's legs are gone, Eriksen's legs are gone? So if we say it and Amorim comes in and he agrees, I don't think that that's fair to put on Amorim personally. But if it's one of those things, if you think a player is going to hurt the team in a given match more than help it, then you're not going to play him. Whether that's a mentality thing like Rashford, whether that's a physicality thing like Casemiro, then that's the job of the manager. But again, managers will live or die by small decisions in a match, whether it's your team selection, your positioning, your substitutes, tactics, all that stuff. That's all going to – and Casemiro probably should have been gone last summer, like Danny says. So there's a chance he could still leave. Like I said, the Brazilian window closes at the end of the month, so he could still go to Flamengo on loan. But the problem is, again, we're losing a lot of players, and we're not really replacing them as well as I think we should have. And that's not an Amorim thing necessarily. But in any case, I do appreciate the thoughts, man. George, it sounds like you're kind of getting frustrated with Amorim, and I get it, but I want to know, I'm always interested to learn why, because everyone's going to have their own opinions. But again, that's going to be it for me today, everyone. Please like the video. Please subscribe. Keep a lookout. If I'm going to go work out real quick, and then I'm going to check the poll to see what everybody thinks. So we might do a watch along that will probably go live a little before 3, probably quarter till, depending on which match. So until then, enjoy the rest of your morning, and might see you in a couple hours, might not, but it's up to you guys. So take it easy, and I will talk to you later. Bye.